Before we even jump into this talk, I would recommend that any questions that you may have about auditions or about preparing for auditions or practicing or whatever, just write them down right now. I may answer them in the course of like what I'm going to tell you, but I may not. So whatever questions you have, make sure to write them down. You can also send them to me in the chat as we're going. It doesn't have to be even about any topic. I'm going to get to them all towards the end. But for right now, let's just go ahead and dive right in. There's plenty to get to, as I'm sure you can imagine. Ironically, this whole big bugaboo of auditions kind of really ties into our last talk about how to practice, because really how to practice and how to audition are the same topic. In audition, I like to think of an audition in two different ways. One, an audition is a reflection of how you practice, and two, an audition is a performance. And so with that being said, are you doing the right things daily in your practice habits? Those of you that were on the call last week, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you that weren't, I'm just going to quickly share my screen. I don't want to do that a lot today because I do that a lot. So I am going to just share what I have compiled to be helpful tips for practicing. These are in no particular order. They're just things that I believe truly do work in my own playing, but also in talking to other musicians about how they practice. So the first thing I wrote down is slow, thoughtful, deliberate. Make sure that no matter what you're practicing, that it's thoughtful, that it's thought out. Why am I practicing this? And for whatever you do not try to just play things at tempo. It's only going to reinforce some bad habits or shortcuts. So please, please, please start slow. I always tell my students that if you think of my screen as a graph, right? Y-axis here and then the X-axis here. If this is the speed at which you play a certain excerpt, and this is the time you spend playing at that tempo, you will ideally play slow until the very end, and then it just shoots up like an exponential kind of growth. Because it's like a pyramid. The more you practice slowly, the easier it's going to be to build higher levels at a faster tempo. So if you try to build a pyramid in the middle of the pyramid, you're not going to get a pyramid. It's going to be like some broken bunch of rocks. Anyway, that's the first thing. The second thing is quality over quantity. We talked about this on Wednesday. Make sure that you are not setting goals of time when you practice. But what are you working towards? Maybe literally today, all you want to do when you pick up your instrument is I want to reinforce a good habit, or I want to practice my tone. Or if you're a string player, maybe you want to practice how you shift your bows or how you retake your bows, getting those really smooth. That's fine, but just work towards one thing. When you accomplish it, work towards another. Build upon the things you achieve and don't make it an issue of time. Time builds in a lot of negative constructs. We don't want that, especially when we're preparing for auditions. The third thing, I kind of touched on that just now, is goals. Be careful what the goal actually is. Is the goal externally motivated? Like, is it an audition, external motivation, or is it internal? Is it because I want to get better? Is it because I want to improve my process? I want to improve my playing. I want to improve me. Make sure that those goals are clear, because it's very easy to get distracted when the goals are externally motivated. And that is a very important distinction to be made. That is a lesson I learned when I was training with SEALs in DC. They told me that, as you all probably know by now, the SEAL dropout rate from basic training is like 90%. Only about 10% of those that apply actually go through the training. Why? They are still finding, but that the number one reason why is external motivation versus internal. Those that have it inside of them that like, no, I'm doing this for me, usually succeed. Nothing's going to deter them from getting to that goal. But those that are doing it for the wrong reasons, maybe they want to be famous or just really buff or whatever, they want to have the glory, they don't really make it, and it shows. Just make sure you're setting goals that are good for you, that are reflective of you. Okay, the next one, practice sections you cannot play well. It's really fun to play through a piece if you know 90% of it and like play through the 90%, then you get to that one spot when you're like, these 8 measures, I think I shall skip over them right now. Continue on to the piece. That's really fun, and I encourage you to do that, but that's not really practicing or preparing very well. So make sure you identify those spots. And here's a really important distinction. Understand why you can't play that section well yet. Maybe it's too fast. Maybe it's a simple technical thing. The muscle memory is not built in. That could be it. But maybe it's a tone thing. Maybe you're not supporting your air. Maybe you're not doing this. It's really all some aspect, some fundamental thing is missing from your playing in that moment in time. Identify it. Be really, really aware. If you're not sure, record yourself. What are you hearing? Your ears are pretty good, so make sure you trust yourself. But no matter what, don't just practice a section that you can't play well without knowing why. Otherwise, you'll just do it because you can't do it, and then that's not fun. So make it a game. How well do I know myself? All right, the next thing, repetition and reinforcement. So always ingrain good habits, ingrain good playing techniques. One of my roommates in grad school was a trumpet player, and every single day, I kid you not, I heard the exact same 30-minute warm-up. It was, oh my gosh. So I knew that at 8 a.m. I left the house for half an hour about 6 months into our lease because I just couldn't take it anymore. But that being said, what I was really proud of him for was he was ingraining really good habits. Why? Because he knew that after that warm-up, he could really feel comfortable and confident playing anything that day. And it wasn't even necessarily he was playing the instrument. He was using his mouthpiece a lot. And he was doing external things like singing stuff. It was weird. But for him, it worked. And he actually won an audition that year. So what I loved about that is he was ingraining good habits. All right, reinforce good behaviors. So reward yourself. Yes, there's that old like Pavlovian trick of like when a dog knows it's going to get food, if it sits and you tell it to sit, it's going to keep doing the sit when you say sit because it knows it's going to get some food. That's cool because you can do that for yourself. That's not a bad thing. So I know that when I practice like blank or I achieve this many goals or I cross this many things off my list, guess what I'm going to do that day? I'm going to have me a glass of bourbon and a cigar. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But I know that's my little treat. That's cool. But just have some sort of system of self-reward. Maybe for you, it's playing a video game. Maybe it's taking a walk. Maybe it's like, I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. Just reward yourself. Here's an important one. Go to live music. When you're preparing for an audition, it's so easy to get bogged down in the music you're working on, in the music you're preparing, and you focus and you get so in depth and you get so tunnelized in this little like pocket of music, and you're like, I can't listen to anything else. My mind's gonna not take it. Can't handle it. No. But do it because it's gonna help shape your context. It's gonna show you things, or maybe you'll see a new technique that you think is cool, or it'll just open your mind up. Either way, freshen it up. Go to live music. Number 7, very important, warm up your body and mind. The older I get, when I try to run a 5K without warming up, it hurts. I'm noticing this. So I take the time to warm up at least a little bit. So the same thing should be true in our playing. Don't just kind of sit down and like start playing a Chopin ballade. That's not really going to go well. I hurt myself doing that one time. Well, I was whatever. Anyway, just make sure to warm up. Maybe it's simple hand stretches. Maybe it's leg stretches or like weird backs, whatever. Just warm up. But an important thing to warm up is your mind. We always think of warm-ups as body exercises, but let your mind be a warm-up too. Take the time to really, really unlock your mind in that moment. Like, am I in the right frame of mind to practice right now? Like, let me just clear out everything that happened in the day so far, and let me focus on the moment right now. That's very hard to do. It's one of the hardest things to do about orchestra rehearsals, believe it or not. There's 65 of us that come into a room on a Monday night, and that usually means that a lot of us have just come from work or from school or from something. Guess what you're going to carry with you into the rehearsal room? The day of work and school and relationships and whatever else you want to add to the plate. And so playing effectively and playing in the moment mentally, it's going to be hard to do. Take a minute before you practice every day and ingrain that good habit. All right, practice with intention. We already said that. Record yourself, not to be confused with reward yourself. Record yourself. We live in a day and age where this thing can record at such a high quality. can give you instant, immediate feedback. If you have an iPhone, there's a great app on here called Voice Memos. It actually has really good audio quality. But one thing I love to do when I practice is record myself, because I find more often than not, when I don't record myself, I find myself playing very fast. And that's just because my mind works very fast. And so I internalize playing fast with normal things. And so I recorded myself playing Rhapsody in Blue last week, like one section of it. And I was like, man, that feels so under tempo. And I listened back to it and it was 20 clicks faster than I wanted it to be. And I was like, man, no wonder I'm struggling with it. So it's a really good thing to do. Please, please, please record yourself. In the day of social distancing, in this era of COVID-19, it's even more important because technology is your friend. If you don't have an iPhone or any sort of recording app, that's not an excuse. They're all online. They're free. Just do it. Cool. Next thing, have fun when you sit down to practice. That's a really good thing to do every day. We talked about it last Wednesday. Sit down and have some fun every time you play. Maybe it's 5 minutes to begin your time. Maybe it's at the end, in the middle. Just freshen it up. Play what you want. Do it. It's going to help you. You're going to feel more human. All right, cool. So those are the practice tips that I have listed there. I can send those to you if you want that list, but those are just my 10, if you want to call them. They're not even my 10. They're just a compilation of the top 10. But they also work for me because I've tried and tested many of these. So, okay, now that we've talked about that, let's dive right into, actually, before we do that, let's take this first stopping point. Any questions so far before we dive into the audition itself? Everybody good? Just checking in. Okay, so let's dive right in. Remember to send me any questions you may have in the chat. All right, in the meantime, diving in. So the audition is a multi-step process, and it does not begin with preparing your excerpts for the audition. In fact, many things happen before then that you must be aware of. The first thing is finding the right fit, and that means applying for the right audition. For example, if you just graduated high school and like you're sitting third chair in your high school violin section, you're probably not going to be interested in the Chicago Symphony Concertmaster audition. Just go ahead and cross that one off the list. Why? The excerpts are way too much to prepare in the short amount of time that you have. It's outside the comfort range. It's probably going to cost you a lot. A lot of those high-level orchestras require you to pay a certain deposit. So anyway, the point being, find the right fit for you. Where are you in your career? Where are you in life? Where are you? How much time do you have to prepare? What are your goals, most importantly? Where do you want to be? And maybe this next audition is a stepping stone to the next thing you want to be. So just make sure to find the right fit. The worst thing you can do is be like, I'm going to audition everywhere. I don't really care what Wojtek says. And then you find yourself preparing 4 different auditions with 4 different repertoire lists in like 3 months' time, and you lose all sense of humanity and purpose because you're practicing 27 hours a day. It's not fun. Make sure to take the right fits, the things that fit you well. I promise you, you will be happier and healthier if you just focus on 1 or 2. No more than that at a time. I promise it's not going to go well if you try to do more than that. Believe me, I've tried. Okay, that's the right fit. Blah, 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 blah. And also picking the right things. What do they have that you want? Is it playing in the first violin section and you're playing the seconds right now? Or maybe you're playing second clarinet and you want to play first. Or maybe you're sitting 4th chair in like regional orchestra level C and you want to sit 2nd chair in regional orchestra C. Maybe that's a good thing because it keeps moving you up. So identify the opportunities that exist and know why you're applying for that audition. Don't just be like, I'm doing that one. Pick them consciously, deliberately. The second thing is, while you're doing this, daily practice. What are you working on? Fundamentals should be your daily practice. Even if you don't have a piece you're working on or excerpts, fundamentals, make them fun. You can do it. If you don't know how, we'll talk about it later. Have that be a question. I'd love to talk about that if you're curious how to make fundamentals fun. Because it's never taught in school, and that's such a shame. It's such a shame. I learned how to play scales in a fun way when I was 23. That's not okay. Anyway, so the next thing, what's the next thing? Be healthy. So when you've decided to take an audition, you've made a commitment to yourself, to your time, to others. You have now carved out a block of time in your day that you're going to devote to this. With that, that means you're going to now have a new balance in your life. So make sure that you're still maintaining a balance for yourself. Can I commit to all my relationships, my friends, my significant others, my loved ones, my family? Can I commit to my schoolwork or my job or whatever? Can I commit to the things I really need to do for myself? Maybe you have a child. Maybe you have this, a car that needs to be, I don't, whatever. Just make sure you're being healthy in your balance. Yes, auditions are great, but if you're preparing for the Chicago Symphony and you only have an hour to practice a day and they have 17 excerpts and it's the next month, it's probably not going to work out very well. So you're going to have to find a balance that's healthy for you. Maybe you're okay with that. Maybe you're okay with like being like, everything else is second. My life is music and food. I don't even need to sleep. I've tried that too. It doesn't work. But the point is, just make sure that whatever balance you have is healthy for you. Quick story for me, I once took an audition that I won. I won the audition, but it was at the expense of a lot of other things in my life. And when I won the audition, I realized I'm actually not happy having won the audition because it cost me a lot of things. I won't get into what I'm referring to, but it's just be careful. Just be careful and know what commitments you're making to yourself. I just want everyone to respect themselves. Okay, so now you decided to apply and you've identified the right thing, the right place for you to apply to. Step 2 is getting the audition. And so there's an important distinction to be made about what kind of audition are we talking about here? And there are many different types. I'm going to go through them quickly. The first is an open call audition, what they call a cattle call. And this may look like, it's section violin in Duluth Symphony Orchestra, inviting all applicants. That's an open call. When they're not having any sort of pre-screening requirements, that basically is saying, hey, we're gonna take everyone who wants to apply and hear them all in one day, and that's the audition. Because you never know what you're gonna find. That's a great way for you if you haven't been discovered yet or you haven't had any experience yet. It's a great way to get some good experience, especially if those auditions are free. But it's also a good thing for them as orchestras to discover things that they would never have a chance to discover. Talent that's being developed still or stuff like that. So those are great little opportunities. Okay, the second one is a pre-screening audition. So all pre-screening requirements must be sent to blank email at this, whatever. And it can include different documents and all this stuff. Let me break that code down for you. That pre-screening is not to be taken lightly. If you are applying to an audition that has pre-screening requirements, that is your audition. That is it. Do not take it lightly, especially in the field of conducting. Every single audition I've ever seen is pre-screened. What does that mean? That can usually involve a whole packet of things. They want to see a resume, a cover letter, a bio, your repertoire list of stuff you've conducted or studied, 3 recordings of yourself in contrasting styles, references, whatever. I mean, this list can go on and on and on. The longest list I had was like 9 items long. It took me like 17 days to do. But the point is that pre-screen requirements are actually your audition, and do not take these lightly. I did in the beginning of my career. It's a big mistake. Why? Because that's your first impression. And if you make a very bad impression, it's going to be remembered, especially if you want to apply to that organization again. For example, if any of you are thinking of applying to a local orchestra, for example, Hilton Head, Charleston, Beaufort, what else? Long Bay, all of these. If you want to apply to any of those groups, do not take the pre-screening lightly. You have one chance. And that's okay if you don't win the audition, but you still put in a good name. No offense, chances are they won't remember your name, but that's okay because you just prepared well and you simply weren't chosen. Unless you made a really good impression, and they will remember your name. The worst thing you can do is take the pre-screening requirement so badly that you remembered for doing that. That might really hurt you in the future. Don't set yourself up for that. Take every pre-screening seriously, and I mean that. Okay, let's move on here. Audition by invitation only. That's a fun one. So this usually means that it's a closed audition. What does that mean? You should not bombard the personnel manager of that orchestra being like, Hey, I want to audition. How do I audition? Can I get an audition? I would like to audition for your group. That's a good way to get yourself blacklisted from that group. Do not do that. What that simply means is that they are closing that invitation to their network. That's very important. Oftentimes, a lot of folks think that this means I don't qualify. I'm not one of the people that qualifies for this. But you never know what your 6 degrees of separation are. Those auditions, if those interest you, find your degrees of separation from that audition. For example, let's say that I want to take an audition at the Illinois Symphony, right? And I'm applying for the seat of Clarinet 1. They have an invitation-only audition. Okay, well, I wasn't invited, so that means I can't go. Not necessarily. What is really good about that for orchestras is they don't have to set any deadlines. They are rolling, and they'll actually have the audition whenever they feel like it because they don't have to announce it. So that's great, because what that means is you have time to invite who you want and give it time. Whoever wants to find out or whoever is going to tell them about it, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my contacts. Oh, James. Wait, James plays in Illinois Symphony? I didn't know that. Okay, I'm going to go on Facebook and I'm going to shoot James a message. James plays violin 1 in the orchestra. Hey, man, I saw you guys are having an audition, blah, blah, blah. I saw it was closed. Do you know anything about it? That's a great way to ask, by the way. Do you know anything about that audition? I don't know. You know everything about it. James says, I don't, man, but here, you know what, dude? Let me give you the contact info for the concertmaster. I'm sure he'd love to talk to you, and I'll give him your recommendation. Like, I'll tell him that you know me. Great, man. That'd be so great. Wonderful. Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. Guess who you're going to call next? The concertmaster. Guess what's going to happen? Hey, oh my gosh, it's so nice to... No, you're not going to do that. Don't be fake. But what you are going to be is real. Hey, yeah, I know that you guys are having an audition. I'd love... It's very interesting. It sounds like a really good fit for me. Blah, blah, blah. Just be a human. Just have a real conversation with whoever person you get in touch with. I'm giving you an example. This may not exactly work out that way, but please don't be fake. And please don't be rude. Invitation only is sometimes a challenge. Can you break the puzzle? Can you solve the challenge of how to get that audition? Anyway, okay. And the last type of audition to get is the I'm going to create an audition for myself situation, where there is no real audition posted. And what that simply means is you can get on the sub list for an orchestra that interests you. This is really good for regional work. If you're a high-level player, let's just hypothetically say, that I know many of us are not at that level, but let's hypothetically say that you are a section player in the Charleston Symphony right now. So you're a very good player. But what that's going to mean is that what you could do, and a lot of them do, is get their names on the sub list for other orchestras within like a 4-hour driving radius that are on a similar level to Charleston Symphony. And what that's going to do is it's going to set you up for the future. If you're playing on their sub list, if you get invited to play with them, that's your audition, by the way. But if you're not invited, you're still on their list. That gives you a great in because you'll probably hear about their auditions if they're ever having one. Or if you do go play with them, you'll hear about anything like grumblings in the section or like, oh, I hear that Phil's going to retire next year. I think that seat's going to be open. Oh, cool. Good to know. So that's a really good thing. A, it gets you out there and playing, but B, it gets you in contact with these. What you can then do is make sure that you're on that list. Make sure you're on their radar. Alternatively, right now, many of us are taking lessons from teachers privately. Guess what? Your teacher probably knows about like auditions somewhere happening. So guess what you probably could do? Hey, teacher, I am interested in taking an audition anywhere. Do you know of any? Guess what teacher will say? Why, yes, I do. I think there is one happening blank. Nice. You just created an audition situation for yourself if you don't know how to find them. And that's really important. Use the resources at your disposal. Use the resources at your disposal. I'll say it again. No, I won't. But the point is, you have so many things working for you at any given point in time. Use that to your advantage. Facebook is a wonderful thing for spies and for us all humans because you have a network on there that is global, absolutely global. You can reach out to X person and they can tell you about this audition and this, blah, blah. Just use the resources that you have, okay? Alrighty. It also helps to have an uncle who's a conductor of an orchestra or something. I don't know, but I don't, but maybe you do. Okay, so when you get an audition, this is very important. So maybe you've applied to the pre-screening, you've passed it, or you're doing the open call. This is the meat and bones of this whole talk. And I like to think of it as my R list, not like pirates, but like the letter R. So the letter R is the beginning of every single one of these steps. The first step, number one, is read. We've all had English class. Read. And what do I mean by read? When you get your invitation to audition, read every single word of that and make sure you understand it. Up to 15 minutes in length does not mean kind of around 15 minutes in length. If I submit one that's 15:30, I'm sure it'll be fine. That is not the same thing. When it says show up no earlier than 15 minutes before your audition time, guess what you're not going to do? You got it. I'm not even going to say it out loud. Read every single word on there. And why? Because winning an audition and preparing for an audition is all about details. And the first details that are in your control are the things you can read, and they want to see how attentive you are to actual details. Because guess what? If you haven't read your email properly, does that mean you're going to prepare your excerpts kind of not well too? You're going to ignore some details in there too? There's a subito piano there that you kind of sped through there. Maybe you're going to want to not do that in the audition. Details are important. Okay, we've set that up. So read. Step one is read. Another thing that I want to put into context for you all. There can be as many as 250 people auditioning for a certain spot. As an example, I auditioned one time as one out of 4 finalists out of 145 applicants. 145 applicants. They have to somehow whittle that giant pool down into 4. They physically probably can't like find all the fine little details that separate you from, you know, person X, and like you're at 7.866 on their like audition meter, but they're like a 7.877. You know what I mean? They're looking for reasons to cut you early from the audition process. Do not give them reasons to cut you, okay? Misspellings in your emails, not a good sign. Just pay attention to details. Now, this doesn't have to be overwhelming. I don't want you to like freak out about perfectionism. I just want you to pay attention. I just want you to read your things calmly. Make sure you understand them. Take the time to do so. A good time to read your emails, like your invitation, like letter for your audition, is probably not while you're watching a show and you're on the phone with your mom and like someone's trying to like talk to you at the same time. It's probably not a good idea to do that. Okay, cool. We established step one is to read. Step two is one I took from my SEAL training, and I have incorporated it into my audition preparation. And that is what actually ironically is step one for all SEALs, and that is recon. You may have heard this word. It is reconnaissance, and what that simply means is scouting. That is gathering information. Why on earth does this matter if I'm applying for an orchestra or some other audition? I'll tell you why. This simply means learn everything you can about the audition. For example, why are they having an audition? You may not be able to find out, but do some digging. Did that person get fired? Are they retiring? Those are two very different things. Who's the conductor? What is he known for? Does he have a very lush, dark string sound? Maybe that's going to influence how I prepare for my audition. Okay. Maybe he has some talks online talking about a certain piece. The best case scenario is you're auditioning for orchestra XYZ in like Tampa, Florida, and there's a video posted of conductor, I don't know, Stephen Jones, and he's talking about Beethoven's 7th Symphony. Oh, I love the symphony. You know, the horn excerpt is really something special. I really love it when blank. All horn players, you better be watching that video if you're applying for that orchestra, because guess what? You just got the answers. It's like you have the final to take, and you got the answer key. It's like right there. That's what I mean by recon. Do your digging, understand the orchestra, research the orchestra, the town. What are they going through? Who is the person that's leaving that seat? Should I get in touch with them? If they were fired, don't. If they're retiring, absolutely. Congratulations on your retirement, man. I'm excited to audition for that spot. Can you tell me about the spot? What can you tell me about it? Well, let me tell you about something that I noticed while playing in the hall. The delay is incredible, so you just got to trust your sound. That's good information to have. You know why? Because when you get out on stage to audition and you feel that delay for the first time, you don't want to be surprised by it. You want to expect and know that it was there. I'm giving you like random examples, I know, but I'm painting a picture that just do your recon. Study and research the audition itself. There's a reason they're having it. There's a reason they're looking for someone, and there's probably, they can narrow it down to what they're kind of looking for. That may not be the type of player you are, and that's okay. Because if you've got the audition, that's just a good experience. And you know that, you know what, I'm not that kind of player. That's okay. Like, I'm probably not going to get this audition, but that's still okay because I'm going to get good experience out of it, especially if you don't have to pay for it. That's still worth a lot. But at least you go into it knowing that there's no expectation. And I'm just going to have fun with it. I'm going to be me. I'm going to do me. That's very important. Have fun. Okay. Step 3 is rudiments. Fancy word for fundamentals. So even like, as soon as I've already mentioned fundamentals, but that really has to be the backbone of your practice when you're preparing for auditions, because all excerpts, every single excerpt is a test of some sort of fundamental technical thing that you're supposed to know how to do on your instrument. Hypothetical example, if you're a clarinet player, one technical thing might be keeping your air constant and your tone constant through all 3 ranges. So an excerpt like Beethoven 8th Symphony is going to test your consistency in the ranges of the instrument. For violinists, maybe Beethoven 6, Beethoven 6, the Storm Movement opening. It's a very awkward excerpt. Why? It's string crossing, a lot of flats, intonation's a nightmare, rhythm is a nightmare, clarity of tone. There's a lot of things that they're actually looking for in that excerpt. So know what they are and work on those fundamentals. Is there something that's not really there in your playing? Is your bow hand weaker than your left hand? Maybe it's time to work on that bow hand. Practice your fundamentals, especially scales. I've talked to 3 people in preparing this audition, 3 people I trust very, very dearly. Every single one of them, without me prompting them, in the course of me asking them about audition prep, has mentioned the word scales and practice all your scales. I kid you not. There is that is no joke. And so sometimes it's hard because when you're a kid and your teacher's like, make sure to practice your scales this week, you're like, okay, dude, not gonna happen because those are boring. But even though that's a good intention and he wants the best for you and that's wonderful, he doesn't tell you why or how to make them fun or how to make them exciting, or that 75% of Mozart's music is based on scales. For example, the opening of the Prague Symphony. Dum, 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 dum. That's a B-flat major scale. That's important. Why? Because if you can't play a B-flat major scale fast, you probably won't be able to play that symphony. Okay, so here we go. But scales are very important. They test your intonation. They test your consistency. They test your tone quality. They also test your range. Scales can do a lot of things. If you don't know how to make them fun, write that down as the question. We'll talk about it later. There's good ways to do it. Other fundamentals, you know what they are. Make sure you identify your methods books that you're going to use. What are you going to, like, you know what I'm talking about. That has to be the core of your practice. Everything you're preparing, at the heart of it, is a test of your fundamentals. How strong of a fundamental player are you? That's what they want. Orchestras, above anything else, want consistency and confidence in playing. If they sense that you're not confident with a certain skill, they'll know right away. For example, a lot of bassoonists don't like playing in a certain range because they're frequently sharp or their sound is terrible. Guess what an excerpt might be for that? Rite of Spring. And that's frequently why it is on there. It's not that difficult technically anymore. It used to be, now it's not, but that's why they put it there, because that range is really awkward. So, just know what your weaknesses are as a player and just work towards improving them. You're not going to improve them all in 2 weeks. It's just not going to happen. This is a lifelong process we're all doing, and we love playing music and getting better. That's wonderful. Make it a slow process that's fun and fulfilling. Don't try to improve every single technical thing you have in 6 months. It's not going to happen, and you're going to be disappointed and crushed. And yes, you don't want that to happen. Story of my life. Anyway, so let's see here. Oh yeah, the next thing I have, what is your warm-up as part of your fundamentals? Do you have a good one set for that? And how much are you focusing on tone? Most important thing is tone. Is it consistent? Okay. The number one technical thing that orchestra conductors, personnel managers, whatever, cite as the number one reason why people lose auditions. Are you ready for the secret to what you should work on? Rhythm. Rhythm. I spoke with Yuri last week, Yuri Becker, concertmaster of Charleston Symphony. I swear the number one thing out of his mouth when we started talking was fundamentals, followed by rhythm. Yeah, rhythm. Rhythm is the most important thing. George Zell, famous Cleveland orchestra conductor who was just everything that you want to be as far as a musician, just had such a great ear, but his most important things that he rehearsed was rhythm. He says that himself in an interview. In fact, excerpts, when you work through the technical things, I guarantee you, if you've been focusing on one technical aspect like tone or like your higher range on this or like your shifting of fingers here, guess what you probably forgot a little bit about or to pay attention to? Rhythm. Make sure that that is a consistent part of working up either a solo piece or excerpts. It's the number one reason people are cut. Why? The last thing a conductor wants to feel on the podium is that you don't know how to count or that you don't have an inner pulse. If one person out of 75 has a different inner pulse than everyone else, we have a problem. And so that is really at the crux of it, something that's very important. Okay, moving on. So now we've covered read, recon, rudiments. Step 4, research. And why is that step 4? We just talked about recon. What the heck, man? I want to get into playing. Research your audition excerpts is what I'm talking about. An excerpt simply means it's a part of a bigger piece. That means it's in the context of something else. You cannot prepare any excerpt without knowing what is going on underneath it, who's playing with you, why it was chosen, why it's important, etc., etc., etc. This is what I mean by research. Research the pieces you're playing. At the time it was written, what was the norm? Maybe for horns, you were playing on crooks instead of a triple horn or a double horn. That's going to impact certain things or tone characteristics. That's important to know how you're going to adjust certain things to make it sound a certain way. Know everything you can about your excerpts, what piece they come from, what section, what's the affect of that piece, who are you playing with at that certain point in time, what's coming before you or after you. And here's an important one. How tired are you going to be when you get to that excerpt in the piece? For example, the 4th movement of Capriccio Español is a huge bunch of different solos in the orchestra. But guess what you've been doing? You've been playing movements 1, 2, and 3. There's a whole lot of excerpts in that movement that are very exposing for a lot of players. Also, if you're a harpist, you probably haven't played in a while on that piece. So you're gonna have to come in and kind of nail a solo out of nowhere. You've been sitting there for 5 minutes. That's really good research to do. Why? Because a great way, once you've prepared your excerpt and you've practiced well and you think you're ready, is to sit down and come into an audition situation and sit for 5 minutes and see if you can maintain your focus and composure and then play it. How well did you do? Because really, what did I just say? An audition is a performance and you want your performance to be on point. So if you're aware, I'm gonna sit for 3 movements and I'm gonna be bored to tears and I'm gonna probably lose focus here. Can you still salvage your mental focus enough to kind of nail it at the end, right? So research, this is what I mean by research. I hope that's clear for everyone, and if it's not clear, write it down. Okay. Oh, solo pieces too. That's an important thing. Like research your solo pieces. It's your choice. But what you choose as a solo piece should kind of reflect a little bit of the repertoire that was chosen as excerpts and stuff like that. So tailor that accordingly. But maybe you want to just pick the piece that you play best. That's fine too. Make sure it's whatever you pick, it's going to be very good and that you can play it very well and you're going to feel confident with it. A lot of times they may ask you if you want to begin with the solo or your excerpts. If you're really confident about your solo, that's your chance to shine. If you're not feeling as confident on the excerpts, that's a great like motivation kind of thing for your audition. So really good kind of like build you up thing too. Sometimes you don't get that opportunity, but it's really good to have something in the back pocket that you know, like, oh, I can whip that out, no problem. That's really good. Okay, step 5, repetition and reinforcement. So we've talked about daily habits, effective practice, deliberate practice. This has to be a process. Ideally, what you will have is the audition date is now set, and you are on date, whatever it is. Okay. I have this amount of time. How am I going to use my time best? You know, honestly, if it's not a lot of time, maybe you just start going at the difficult sections first. Maybe you don't even just run through stuff because you've played it all like before or something. So identify the things you need to do, come up with a plan, a deliberate plan, and make sure to repeat, improve, repeat. Important steps. We want to make sure that every day we're building on something, that we're improving a concept. So maybe if today I played this piece or excerpt at 60 to the quarter note, and I feel like I really played all the musical details in it. I played the rhythm right. I did everything well. I practiced it with intention and I got it to 60. Wonderful. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to try for getting that at 62 or 63 or 64 or 65, whatever. But you have a way that you're going to check yourself. And with the end time in mind, I got to get it by 120 by March 2nd, and it's February 1st. I'm at 65, it's got to be by 120. How am I going to do that? What did I say about building the pyramid? The longer, the slower, the better. Good. Use that to your advantage. Maybe find a ratio that's going to work. Don't ever panic about getting things fast. If you've done it well slow, it's going to serve you well in the long run because it's why it's going to calm you down. Practice with a metronome, please. Practice with a metronome. That helps with rhythm. Practice with a metronome. Okay. And a tuner. Should be obvious. And a tuner. Tuner metronome. Very important. Okay. What's next here? Step 5, repetition. Oh, step 6 is record yourself. So once you're actually in a place where you've worked up, you've got your solo piece, you are like feeling pretty good. Like, I'm not there yet, but like, man, I'm feeling pretty good. All right, it's a month away, and I like, all right. Next step is how good actually is it? Because what happens oftentimes when we practice a piece, we get what I call internal ear. We think it sounds like this, and that's what we're working towards, and that's what we have in our head, and we imagine that's what it sounds like, and we kind of start ignoring some little things that may creep into our playing or little habits that we're like, no, I don't do that. And I know it sounds like this glorious manifestation of sound that it clearly is, but then you record yourself and you listen, you're like, whoa, oh, that was a chip note. Oh, I rushed that rest. Oh my gosh, that tone is weird. What did I just do? I heard my breath. Oh, and you start noticing a lot of things. And you want to catch this kind of early on, because the last thing you want to do is record yourself for the first time, like 3 days before the audition, and you're like, oh, we got 17 things to work on. Here we go. Balance out the window, health out the window. So record yourself early and often. It's a really good tool. Oftentimes people joke that the best thing a teacher can do for you is listen and tell you what you did wrong. So can an iPhone. But it's true. Really, really pay attention to recording yourself. It's a really, really good handy tool that you can use. That's free. Oh, it costs you nothing. An important part of the recording yourself is also mock auditions. And I put it under that same step because I think they relate to one another. Recording yourself is very, very helpful, but even more helpful is mock auditions. Setting the situation up where you invite like 5 people that you trust. One of them who pushes you outside your comfort zone. Believe me, that's going to help. Like someone you may not even like, honestly, I promise you it's going to help. And just have them sit and listen to you, and have it not be a blind audition, but just have it like they're looking at you dead in the eye. Because you don't know what it's going to be like sometimes. You may walk into a huge auditorium where they're sitting up in the upper balcony. You can't see their faces. And that's like, and sometimes you're like, awesome. I have nothing to be worried about. I'm just playing to an empty room. But sometimes you're sitting and they're like 10 feet in front of you. And you're like, oh, can't run now. Well, a mock audition is a really good way to get rid of that. It helps you visualize your goal too. It helps you visualize the audition day. It helps you see the process of like, I'm gonna walk in with this attitude, with this confidence. I'm gonna tell myself this, and then I'm going to play. And it really should be a run through of the audition, not just like playing, but like everything, your mental headspace, how you're feeling, how you're gonna walk. To think through, visualize your audition, what you intend to see. Another thing that Yuri told me that I loved was, for him, it's like a good movie he's playing in his head when he's at the audition. He sees he's going to walk out there and play really well, and they're going to enjoy it. It's going to be a good day, and they're going to thank him for his time, and he's going to be like, thank you so much for having me. And he's going to walk out, and he's going to get a call in 3 days. It's going to be wonderful. Everyone's going to be happy. And that's a really good visualization technique. It may sound silly, but it's so true. It's good to know why you're there and what your goal is in that audition room. And just remember that. Remember to have fun. Remember to make it positive. I know this music. I'm going to just enjoy it. I'm going to just go out and play, or something like that. Just make sure you know how to visualize. A good way to do that, mock auditions. I'm repeating myself just for making sure it sticks. Okay. What's after that? Oh, here's a really good mock audition trick for those of you that are going to do those. This is, you don't really see this out there too often, but it's funny because a lot of people do it. I call it the metronome hack. And what you do is you take a metronome with you, and let's say you're practicing excerpt blank that you've played thousands of times. Let's just say whatever excerpt it is. And it's supposed to be quarter note equals 96. And you've played it at quarter note equals 96 like every day for the past 3 months. It's been 96. But now you're not in an audition situation. And so you walk in and you get your metronome out before you go out and play. I do this all the time in auditions. Sometimes before rehearsals and performances too. I'll get my metronome out and I'll try to see how much are my nerves and my body adjusting my internal tempo. Because sometimes when you're nervous, it may simply affect you like 4 to 8 clicks. And that's not a big deal, but it is when you've practiced a piece at 96 and now you're playing it at 104 and something feels a tick too fast. And it's gonna throw you off a tick, just a hair. It's gonna make you question it, like, man, something that didn't feel that way yesterday. Uh-oh, and that's probably why. That's a really good hack that I like to use for myself. I check my tempos. I'm really glad I do. Sometimes I'm dead on. Other times I'm like 4 to 8 clicks fast. So, I mean, but that's a good kind of reflection of where you are too. Just use that. It's going to be helpful when you're preparing. How's my internal clock? Okay, the last step. This assumes now that you've been preparing for a certain period of time. You've been healthy in your practice habits. You've been doing the right things, taking care of yourself, giving yourself plenty of breaks, but also working towards goals. The last thing you want to do is relax. The closer you get to an audition, the more stress you're going to feel about it. It's just the logic of it all. The closer the audition, stress is here. The closer you get, more. So the obvious thing to do is prepare early, and the closer you get, wean off the intensity level so that by like a day or two before the audition, you're just kind of playing through it slowly and having fun with it. Like, I got this. I'm just me out there. And that's a really good place to be. You want to give yourself time to relax and to clear everything. This may be obvious or not, but preparing an audition, no matter what it is a grueling thing. It doesn't matter what level of audition, because it implies a commitment of time. It implies a commitment of energy, both mental and physical. It implies Certain decisions have to be made, frustrations, stresses. You're going to have stressful days practicing. We're not perfect, of course. You're going to have a lot of those things come up, and that over an extended period of time, it's going to wear you out. And so what you want to be able to do is build yourself back up so that you're at your fullest at the audition itself. That's a very, very healthy thing to do. So make sure you build in some time so that you're not aiming for 120 at audition day. You're aiming for 120 a week or two before audition day, and you can get there and to those 2 weeks of buffer and just get back to health, get back to good things. You know what I mean? All right. Those are the 7 steps of preparing for an audition for me. It's read, recon, the rudiments, research, repeat and reinforce, record yourself, and then relax. That should be the body of work. Now, we've already covered the repetition and reinforcement, how to practice, the tips for those. So this is kind of the process. We've also talked about being at the audition, visualizing what's going to happen, have a really good warm-up, have a really good breakfast that day. There's a lot of things. So that's kind of the musical process involved. Now, that being said, you may win an audition, you may lose an audition, and neither one is good or bad. I'm going to say it like that. It may seem stupid to say that, but even when you win an audition, that may not be a good thing. Because sometimes what that happens, if we have external factors motivating us, you may have won the audition, but then you start slacking off, or that actually isn't your process, and then you kind of go back to some bad habits. And guess what you may do? You may lose that job because that's not actually your process. And you may have faked them at the audition, but that's going to kind of make them mad. So yeah, even though you won the audition, what are you doing about it? Are you maintaining that daily healthy lifestyle? And so it's funny, we talk about audition prep being a healthy balance. It has to continue because even though you won this one, you're probably going to want to prepare for another one down the road. A bigger one. You're going to have the same process, maybe even extend it a bit more, but you're going to have more under your belt, of course, experience, technical expertise, of course, but the rule applies. Balance has to apply. And we often think of auditions as this like, here we go, 4 months, I'm going to turn off my phone, I'm going to turn off everything. It's just going to be, but that's not realistic because you can't live life like that. So this has to reflect a way for you to do this personally, healthily. The last piece of advice I can give you about playing is if you were on the call on Wednesday, you heard me talk about the 3 things that Madeline Bruiser talks about being the kind of psychological tensions that exist during practicing. One of them is like over passion. The other one's avoidance. The other one is control. I forget. The point being, I forget what the name of that last one is. Ironically, it's what I'm getting at, but aggression, that's what it is, aggression. The number one reason, apart from rhythm, that people that have nailed their audition, as they say, and walk out and did not win the job and don't understand why, there actually is a reason. And part of that reason is, it sounds bad, aggression. I don't mean like you came in and you played everything really madly, but what that word implies on a psychological level is control. The last thing you want to do is walk into an audition and control the audition and control the music, control the tempo, control. That's where you let go. And you have to allow the music to speak through you. When we try to control all the variables, it's going to sound controlled and unmusical. I've heard it countless times where someone I can tell prepared for 9 months and they clearly did all the right work. But what they are missing is the key aspect of letting go and letting go of the music, not strangling it and playing it perfectly. Yes, auditions are about details. Yes, auditions are about preparing things very, very, very well, but you can't control them. You cannot like hug the music to death. And that is the main reason why people don't understand they got cut from auditions. They may have played it well, but it may have been unmusical and way too controlled. I've heard it all too often in auditions as a conductor, so I know it exists, and I'm sure I've done it as a player. So how do you get rid of that? Do some digging about that. Do some research. We can't cover everything here, of course, but look into this concept of what that means to play in a controlling way, or You know, what does that mean for me? Am I doing that? Do an awareness check. We can talk about that too. You can ask me about that too. But that's a really good thing to know and to be aware of, because it may impact your audition results way more than you think it does. Okay. Right. We've covered that. I've covered like an example of an audition package. I have a lot of different resources I can give you. If you want resources on where to find auditions, how to prepare. There's actually 3 great websites on how to prepare auditions. Some of them are particular to your instrument. On YouTube, there's a lot of channels dedicated to your particular instrument, and someone's giving them talks about how to prepare certain excerpts and stuff like that. But there's a great group on Facebook called Audition Hacker. It's run by Rob Knopper. And he's a musician at the Met. He's a Metropolitan Opera Orchestra musician, so he's kind of good. He runs his own website too. And just go to robknopper.com. That's Rob, KNOPPER.com. Audition Hacker, like I said, he spells out a really good kind of step-by-step process too that works for him. Ironically, I found out about this website 4 days ago, and I went through it and I was like, wow, like he uses my process / I use his process, but I didn't know it, but we both kind of are on the same page. So that's a really good thing. You want to just kind of check in with those kind of things. YouTube is a great resource for so many things. Listen to recordings, listen to people give master classes, super helpful. There's accompaniment tracks on YouTube. Like everything you want is probably on there. So use it. It's a great tool. Okay. The 2 websites I'll tell you about that are really good are auditioncafe.com. Tons of resources, like literally how it sounds, auditioncafe.com. The other one is Musical Chairs. That's right, like the game, musicalchairs.info. That's another great one. They have countless audition listings from all around the world. So if you're like, man, I don't want to live in Charleston anymore. Where do I want to live? Belgium. Do they have any openings? Let's see. Oh, the orchestra in Liège is opening. They're all around the world. So use those 2. And use your teacher if you have a teacher. Use your network as resources. It's going to be very, very helpful. With that being said, that draws us to an end of this advice chat, if you will. But more importantly than me giving you tips and advice and practical things, feedback is your questions. So I'm going through the chat and let's see. I am sorry, Annalise, that I am killing you. Ha ha, with my jokes, I'm sure, but I'm killing, okay. Okay, there's no questions in here though. Okay, that must mean that I explained everything so well. So well. That's fantastic. Okay, so a question from Savannah just came in. How do you make scales and fundamentals fun? You mentioned it earlier in the chat. I'm so glad you asked. Scales should be fun. Scales are fun. Yes, they are a repeated succession of notes, and that by itself kind of is boring, but not when you start adding in some variety. And so there's obviously various technical things you can do. I'll give you an example on the piano. So let's say I'm practicing a C major scale. Yay, I'm done. But what you can do is you can then make it like an Irish jig. It's going to help with your rhythm. You can turn it into some sort of different rhythmic pattern. Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh. That's a really basic example. Another one I love to do is make a song out of it. I just kind of made that up, whatever. You can make up whatever you want to do. The point of the matter being that make it a song, make it something that's not just a scale. Yes, you're still practicing the scale, because what is a scale about? Consistency of tone, knowing where your fingers have to go in the right place. So you can still work on those things, but then challenge your brain to add a certain element to it that when you take it away, you know, it's that you're left with what you need. Another one is just mix up the technical things, like instead of playing, sorry, instead of doing, I'll do, all right. That's one way. For pianists, you can just kind of like come up with games. Like I was shown this game by my teacher when I was a kid, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Like I was used to playing scales like, oh my gosh, when's it over? Hate it. But then when you add a challenge into it, like, you can add things like that where you can play, you can work on your octave scales in your left hand. Are my fingers consistent? I don't know if you can see my 3, 4, 5. That's a really good exercise to do for that. But I'm also working on 2 different rhythmic things. So you can do stuff like that. Make it into songs, make it into different rhythmic patterns. The really cool thing is delaying scales like by a beat. I love doing this. Like if you're playing like with a recording of a scale, start a third above it. And so like they're playing. Love that. Because then you're playing in harmony, then you're hearing like harmony and it sounds glorious, it's wonderful. These are just some ideas. I also love finding scales in context. For example, if I'm working on, I don't know, let's just say a C major scale, I'll use it again as an example, and I'm a pianist. I'm going to like do some research. What pieces use the C major scale a lot? Maybe I'll practice that piece like slowly. Because when you practice rep, it's way more fun than scales. But if you practice scales in rep, it doesn't feel like you're practicing scales. So a really good one is, why is that one good? Three scales in a row. And they actually are extended scales. So that, you know, that's a different challenge right there altogether. It's part of the music. It's part of a different context, but it's actually an extension. So you have to have a different fingering for it. That's really good. I'll be aware of that. Maybe I can incorporate that into my excerpts. And now you've learned a new thing. You've learned a new piece. You've learned a new way to come about a scale. The other thing is make it fun in a completely stupid way. And that means like, one time I was working on C minor and I was like, I'm going to play it like Jaws. And why? That's fun and it's silly and it's goofy, but like what I'm actually working on is, yes, the notes, but also like, are my second notes consistent? Like, are they the same volume? Without even thinking about it like that. I just start thinking about it as I practice. You see what I mean? So you make up pieces. You kind of just make stuff up as you go. I don't know what that was, like a fugue in C minor, whatever. But I hope that gives you at least some ideas. Use them in a different rhythmic context, make a song out of them, stuff like that. All right, next question comes from Zach. When you're playing at auditions, what do you concentrate on, look at? I suddenly feel more aware of things around me when I'm performing by myself, and it's very distracting. Okay, Zach, that's a really good thing you touched on, because it's actually a phenomenon that exists for all of us humans. When we are in a situation, this is actually a biological response. You're literally in fight or flight mode at an audition. And so when you're standing there and you're talking about feeling way more aware of yourself, it's because your body is feeling this situation where it's, I'm not kidding, it's life or death. And so you're all of a sudden in tune with what your toes are doing. You haven't felt your toes in 17 years, but like all of a sudden I can feel what my fourth toe is doing. What? It's because your body is telling you, hey man, I need you to be aware. We need to run in a second. There's a lion coming at us from the jungle, okay? And that's silly because we're in an audition. We're not in the jungle, but it's the same biological response. And how does that happen? Because of nerves, anxiety, stress. And it's good to understand where that comes from. Why are you feeling that? It's because of that. That's a natural reaction. Do not fight that. Invite that in. Let that be a part of you. Yes, you're all going to be nervous at auditions. Yes, it's going to make you nervous to stand there. It's going to be a vulnerable experience. Mock auditions help with that. I will say that what to concentrate, look at, that's something you can actually incorporate into your practice. And that's how I'm going to answer that question best. When you practice what to focus on or concentrate on, for example, let's say you're going to play and you know you're going to have a stand in front of you and you're going to be standing at the audition. Maybe you're going to concentrate and look at the stand. Maybe pick certain things, visualize your audition setting. Especially if you've done your research or your recon, you're going to be auditioning in the recital hall. One thing that's really good to do is Google search images of the rehearsal hall or the recital hall, whatever it is, and literally hope to find a stage view. So you can literally visualize what it's going to be like standing on that stage and what you're going to see. Because then you might be able to find in that picture like, oh, there's a cool lamp there. Oh, I'm going to look at that exit sign right there. Okay, cool. I got it. So that's how I'll answer that is do your research, try to find out about your settings, but also just know that it's happening to you and that's okay. That's not a bad thing. So what to concentrate on? Ideally, my answer would be the music. But sometimes it's, when we're fighting nerves, it's hard to do that. So work on that in your mock auditions, work on that in your recordings and things prior, work it into your practice. But in the moment, if you're still feeling it and you need to have a backup strategy, practice that too. Maybe practice like looking at the music or looking at a spot on the stand. I hope that helps, Zach. Let me know if that does or not, if I answered it or not. I hope I did. Josh, from when you were talking earlier about recon, to clarify, do you have scouts from the professional orchestra scouting, orchestra players from professional to profile their playing style? Do you have scouts? No, I don't have scouts. No. Recon is like, I'm sorry if I was confusing, but I meant for you to do your own recon. And like your question is not a silly one because you can have scouts, even though they're not called scouts. They may be your friend that simply plays in that orchestra. So recon means doing your research about the situation, the orchestra, the people, whatever that means to you. Maybe you know that your friend Joe is friends with the trumpet player who's going to be listening to your auditions. That's really good to know too. At least what you'll be able to know is you'll be able to ask him questions about this person. Like, what is he like? What does he listen for? What is his musical style? What should I be on the lookout for? One thing, this is actually very important that I say this because it threw me off in an audition. I think I lost the audition because of this. Try to know who's going to audition you. Even if you can't get a black and white name, you can figure out who's going to be listening to your audition and to know what their style is like on the podium in rehearsal or, just try to find out their style. I went into a conducting audition one time and I knew the conductor who was auditioning me. And I knew he was a really nice guy. He's a really warm guy, really nice. But I forgot that when he's on the podium, he gets into business mode. And that's not him being mean or rude or short. He simply changes mindsets. And I also forgot that at the audition, I don't know him, wink, wink. And so I'm going to get treated like everyone else. It's not going to be like, hey, what's up, man? Welcome. Thanks for coming in. No. That's not going to be good because it's going to paint me in a negative light to the committee auditioning because it's going to look like favoritism. You don't want that. So he was trying to help me out, but I took it as him being mean. I walked in and I smiled at him. I looked at him dead in the eye. And I was like, hey, how are you? And he was like, all right, thanks for being here. If you take the podium, please. And it threw me off so hard. because I didn't understand. I was like, oh my God, did I screw up? Did I just lose it right there? Like, did I say something wrong? Is my fly open? Like, what just happened? So all the things went through my head. I couldn't focus on the music anymore. I had come up with a plan. It was all out the window because it threw me off. So I should have done my recon in the sense that I should have known that he gets into that mode every time he's on the podium. Doesn't matter who's there. That being said, if I had went to more rehearsals and watched him do that, even with his friends, I would have known that. And so this is what I mean by recon. Do it yourself, because your information is more meaningful than anyone telling you a certain thing. Them telling you is a piece of the information that you're going to put into your puzzle. Okay? I hope that helps with that. Anyone else have any questions? No? Really? No one else? Okay. Like I said, I have many resources. If you want to know more, message me privately. I'll send you some stuff. If you need any other pointers, help, advice, practical help, if you want me to listen to anything, if you have a weird question you didn't want to ask in public, that's cool too. Ask me, but I'm here for all of you. I am your resource. So I hope that you use me in that regard. Just ask me questions. I love when people ask me questions. Even if I don't have an answer, I'll try to find out for you. That's just kind of person I am. So just let's keep in touch. And I hope that you're all practicing well and in a healthy way, and you're enjoying it and you're having fun. And no matter what, at the end of the day, remember, you're practicing music. It's not an exercise, it's music. So enjoy it, have fun, and I will see you later this week. I don't know if there's info has gone out yet about a hangout that's happening later this week. We're probably not going to do a second one of these, but rather do like a hang, like just a regular hang. I'm not going to be talking about anything musical, but I don't know. Keep on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, happy practicing and healthy. Take care, everyone.
Mr. Maliski, I have a question.
Okay, Josh.
I can't see you in the theater since my laptop is acting weird, but I can hear you. My question is that can you email the resources about the audition? I could hear clear because my laptop was acting up like.
Yeah, so
hesitating.
Those of you that want resources for auditions, just like let me know. Like send me a message so I can respond to it. Don't just be like, hey, I want one, and then I'll forget. Just let me know, and I'll send those to you. All right, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wojtek.
You're welcome. Until next time.
Thank you, Ms. Maliski.
You got it.